The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was one of the most monumental game releases in history. Yeah, I know, super hot take, but honestly, even 6 years down the line, I find that sometimes my mind is still blown by the fact that this game exists. After 5 years of development and multiple delays, the title that was delivered to us, while not free of flaws, somehow managed to meet the preposterously high expectations that fans had built over the half-decade and cemented itself as one of the greatest video games of all time. And once the dust settled, there was only one thing on every Zelda fan's mind: more. What can I say, we're insatiable. Breath of the Wild presented a winning formula for the series, but one that could very evidently be evolved. Why throw everything aside and start from scratch when a critically acclaimed title rich with potential was there to be expanded upon? As far as the masses were concerned, a sequel to Breath of the Wild was not only the right way to go, but inevitable. And in June of 2019, we got our wish. Nintendo's E3 2019 Direct gave us the first look at the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. A bit wordy, but I'm sure we'll get a title soon. This trailer was insane, not just because it was our first look at the sequel to one of the decade's biggest hits, but because of how weird and creepy it was. This wasn't the grand, wrecked yet serene Hyrule that we become acquainted with. This was unsettling. Link and Zelda venture through the caverns, illuminated by torchlight as chilling, backwards chanting serenades their journey, only for all hell to break loose as they come across the corpse of Ganondorf. This was perfect. It was building off of Breath of the Wild while carving a completely new identity, the Majora's Mask to its predecessor's Ocarina of Time. It looked dark and scary, and had the opportunity to address many of Breath of the Wild's issues, most notably the lack of story, which seemed to be at the forefront of the trailer. And the best part of all of it? It was an asset reusing sequel, meaning it would only take a fraction of the time a Zelda game built from the ground up would take to release. This game was going to be remarkable, and it was going to be in my hands before I knew. Oh. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has me more confused than any game probably ever. So much so that confused isn't even an accurate descriptor. It has me befuddled, bewildered even. Every time I try to make sense of what could possibly be going on behind the scenes, I just come up short. Now, don't confuse my befuddled bewilderment for lack of excitement or anything. Tears of the Kingdom, simply by virtue of being the follow-up to Breath of the Wild, is one of my most anticipated games of all time. Breath of the Wild is my favorite Zelda game, and I'm dying to see what they could possibly follow it up with. And that's just it, see, that's the problem here. I'm dying. Breath of the Wild was not an easy game to wait for. It took nearly 2,000 days for the game to come out after Skyward Sword, the longest stretch between any 3D Zelda game at that point. But within that drought was an understanding that the product we were going to receive was going to be monumental, a reinvention, something that challenged the notions of what The Legend of Zelda could and should be. Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have nearly as big of a burden to carry. The stage has been set, all it needs to do is give us an impeccable performance. This is an asset reusing sequel. The engine, assets, and world are all being brought over from Breath of the Wild. Knowing how much time went into the physics engine and world design, this alleviated the fear of so many fans who were terrified that a 5-year period between 3D Zeldas was our new, unfortunate norm. 2,114 days. As of today, it has been 2,114 days since the release of Breath of the Wild, easily claiming the old record held by Breath of the Wild itself. Somehow, someway, this direct sequel has taken longer to develop than the groundbreaking original that took half a decade to create. And my reaction to this isn't anger, despite what seems like whining, but it's also not the same unbridled excitement that a lot of fans have adopted simply because the game's been in the oven for so long. It's more so a, huh? Like I said, bewilderment. I can't wrap my head around it. What could possibly be causing them even more trouble than creating one of the most influential games in history from scratch? Like every Zelda fan, I've had my fair share of theories. A giant interconnected cave system underneath Hyrule, explorable bodies of water, a playable Zelda, and yet still, even with all of that in mind, it's difficult, impossible even, to imagine it taking this long, even factoring in the wrench thrown in by the pandemic. The game's minimal marketing so far probably hasn't done it any favors in this regard. After the initial reveal, we didn't see it again for 2 years, until we got another E3 trailer showing off one of the game's big new features, floating islands. Awesome! However, the trailer only featured 30 seconds of gameplay footage. Most people waved this off at the time, considering just seeing the game again in any form was a W, and this reveal surely meant that marketing was starting to kick up for the title. Over a year later, we got our third trailer and the game's title reveal. Now this was gonna be interesting. Back in 2021, Nintendo alluded to the fact that the title was still a secret because it could spoil elements of the game. A title reveal would have to coincide with some major info being shown. Well, we got 30 more seconds of Link falling through the sky, that's 1 minute of footage for those of you keeping track at home, and then Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom? What the heck? I feel like I know less than before. Again, no anger, no malice towards the developers or the game, just complete and utter perplexion. Alright, maybe there was some mild frustration. I mean, Breath of the Wild's title reveal was paired with this gorgeous, phenomenal trailer that really dove into the game we'd only seen glimpses of up to that point, making it abundantly clear why it had taken so long to craft and ensuring that the name Breath of the Wild was properly elaborated on through gameplay. Tears of the Kingdom didn't. The most notable thing about its title was the way it hilariously coincided with real-world events at the time and delayed the direct for an entire nation. But in terms of representing the game, we've got nothing. And post-Game Awards, nothing's changed. Despite Tears of the Kingdom winning an award, Jeff Keighley mentioning it being a fan favorite, and transitioning into a world premiere in the clouds, somehow, we got nothing. I'm sure some of you clicked on this video expecting an explanation as to what's been going on with this game, some sort of analysis on the little we know to explain why it's taking as long as it is. But in truth, as much as I like to theorize and talk about things like the very intentional tonal juxtaposition in between the first trailer and the following two, I'm just as in the dark as the rest of you. Maybe more so, like I'm shrouded over here. Tears of the Kingdom is an enigma, one that I've tried desperately to crack, but in reality, we'll have to wait for more information to truly understand. So you might be asking yourself, well, what was the point of this video? And to that I say,